In SEO, if you're doing what's going on right now, you're behind.
Yeah.
I've said that for a long time.
Well, it's funny, Terry. Last night, Doc and I and some of the members were hanging out just on Skype in a private call, and we were talking about that whole future proofing, that whole staying ahead of the curve, and I was saying to those guys that it becomes even more important if you work with large corporations, because by the time if you're not ahead of the game, you're done, because it takes you 6 months to get anything through the system. You know what I mean? By the time it gets through, we joked earlier about that one large corporate. We try to get like title tags changed and stuff like that. By the time it gets through the red tape, something that would take you and I 2 minutes on our website takes 3 months with these people. But literally, yeah, and if it's mobile strategy or whatever, you literally need to be thinking, where is the future search 6 months from now in these corporate situations? Because by the time you get anything done, it's going to be 6 months, like on a strategic level, right? So
Just think about a pharmaceutical company. I was doing some PPC for one of them, literally 6 month turnaround.
Well, but I was talking about reviews and how you could edit or reply to reviews on Google+, and that was 5 years ago. I was about 3 years too early in terms of Google actually rolling it out for a client that had over 1,000 locations. So I can't say which one, but you understand what I'm talking about. The fact being is I was way too far ahead, and so what I've learned is I can see where things are going, but I think it's harder to strategically plan how to be able to flex for that, as opposed to putting your ass out there and saying, hey, we do it this way, and then you sit around and they have, you burn through $25,000 worth of budget, and Google still hasn't moved yet. So I think that's the one cautionary note I would give, is being too far ahead. Sometimes you just got to say, well, it could be this, it could be this, instead of just saying, hey, we should do this now because Google's coming and it's going to do this.
Example, when Google bought YouTube, I went to a client immediately that day and told them to start getting ready to do video. When Google actually...
Pajamas? I'm taking a guess here in the past. Pajamas?
No, that was the Music Supply. They now get most of their traffic from video and have for years. I think over 30 million downloads since I started the account.
Yeah, there was a guy I met at one of the London SCSs who started doing how-to videos in gardening, and that had to have been 2006. And the guy, just rocketed through. The next year, he owned everything.
Think about it, Frank. There's no better way to sell over the internet, show a musical instrument. The players could actually, we brought in professional players to do the videos. They could hear like all different styles of music being played and see how the guitar hangs on the players, that sort of thing. It was unreal. And then we put the video on the actual product page. Man, drives a lot of traffic for them.
Eamon, you're saying to the side there about, that you've had it take a year and still not get approved. And that's the thing, I think I say this a lot to people that, dojo members and this and that they start going, well, the little guy doesn't stand a chance anymore, this and that. And I say, well, that's not true, because if you're nimble, if you can be quick, and I always say the art of war as well, you don't go after head turn against Ford. Remember that, Terry? Yeah, a certain big used car newspaper website, etc. We were in a meeting one day, and they said to Terry and I, we'd like to rank #1 for used Ford. We didn't really think much of it, but we went and took a look at the SERP. Imagine that. Ford ranked #1 for that. It was like, are these people serious? Like, you're not going to get that. So you got to attack from the sides. But anyways, small businesses can be nimble. You can be nimble, whereas like Eamon's saying here in our side chat that, big, large corporations sometimes can take 6 months, 4 months, and then, like Eamon's saying, not even do it out, not follow the advice given. So I don't know, Eamon. I think that's the one thing I always tend to lean on with the people that think they don't stand a chance, is that you've got speed on your side. You've got the ability to be nimble,
Yeah, and Tony just said in the sideline something that plays to that as well. You know, what happens if during that time some change happens and undoes, you know, it reverses all your advice. Well, as I said to Tony, you don't do that, or you're going to lose the contract. This is why corporate SEO is very conservative most of the time. Every now and again they'll ask to take a risk, but most of the time you don't take risks with anything that might change. Anything that has any likelihood of changing, you don't touch. You play to the long game.
Well, if you did no follow tags on a corporate website, you're an idiot. You know what I mean? You had to take them down. And then 6 months later, and you had to bill them twice, and that really pissed them off, and you probably lost a client. I never did anything like that. But a lot of the times with like high-level corporate, because I'm working on stuff that is, these are Fortune 50, Fortune 5, and so what we're doing is a lot of times the client screws something up and you just redo it. That's all you can do. All of a sudden our Google Webmaster Tools tag is gone because somebody up there at the front page and blew it away. Well, you've got reports due at the end of the month, so you better make sure you get a notification if that page changed. Then you end up sending page monitoring to make sure that when the tag is removed, you get an email. So that's the kind of thing with corporate client is you got to babysit to make sure that the IT department, who doesn't necessarily always have access to SEO, because the SEO sometimes is in the marketing suite and you're passing that through the marketing suite to the technical people, that the technical people are monitored, because if they screw your stuff up, it's your head on the block, not the IT people.
Dave Davies, welcome to the show and the family and the whatever. Good to see you, man.
Well, nice to be here.
Jump on in. Yeah, I know it's your first time, so you have to get used to it. You got to kind of run someone over with a truck around here to get a word in. So anyways, are you doing corporate? Are you working corporate or SMBs, or what's your take on the whole?
We have a lot of smaller ones too, and a couple larger ones. I think a lot of the points that are being made here are entirely right, where you do have the advantage as a smaller company to go in, be a little more nimble, react a little faster. On the other side, and to be fair to some of them, their budgets tend to be smaller, their risk factors tend to be, they have to be a little more protectorate. So, yeah, as you're giving this advice, it's great advice. Yes, they can be nimble, but they don't have the resources to put in. So if you have a couple misfires out of the gate, well, there's their budget.
Yeah.
Now they can't afford to do that next thing. So, but being the nimble is, the first thing I was thinking of, or one of the things I was thinking of is, chasing after the author. And yeah, if you went in there early with the author tags, great. If you were, a little delayed by, a year or so, all of a sudden it was disappearing and you were, sort of hooped. So yeah,
but taking stuff like AMP, that's something you could quickly implement. You know what I mean? Even changing title tags, or let's say recommendations from an audit. I mean, my SMB clients can get that stuff pretty much sorted out within a 10-day period. Whereas, Terry, I literally a major insurance company in the UK, and I'm sure that Hammond could probably guess who it is. A lot of our friends, Ben McCabe, worked there, and so on and so on. But the funny story so one SEO friend of ours, called me in to do an audit. Okay. Then 2 years later, he left the company, but another person that we all knew took over his spot. So he says to him, he says, well, who should I get a hold of to get the ball rolling? Oh, give Dave a call. So he gives me, gets a hold of me, and I'm like, oh, I just did an audit for you guys a couple years ago. He's like, yeah, well, we want another one. Okay, fine. I'll take your money. And then I went and, I did the audit. And then I went back and I purposely didn't look at the one I had done before. I went back and looked at the one I had done 2 years earlier, and literally I could have almost just cut and pasted and sent that off. Like, so little had changed from, okay, here, give me, a couple $1,000 and then do nothing with the information. It was like, okay. So I don't know, corporate gets like that. Like AMP, we're talking, I guess it was last week, and Steve Garanser was in here. And literally, he's got a corporate client of a fairly large site that just finished relaunching back in January. Now, they're not going to redevelop the site just for AMPs. So, whereas, again, a smaller, technical stuff like that, I think smaller businesses can actually implement quicker, right? So,
yeah, I think Ammon actually just made a really good point there, like a great example talking about schema. And I just sent some schema over to a smaller client They're just a couple million, and their tech team had it. It was up within 24 hours, deployed because they had access to all of their entire database. A couple little tweaks needed to be done after. That was done within 24 hours of that, right? I sent over the idea, I sent over the scheme I wanted on there. Within 48 hours, it was validating and online. Whereas, you try and get that through a major publisher or something like that, and it's like pulling teeth, and they're going to have a dozen meetings trying to figure out what kind and what, and sending questions back, and missing the boat entirely.
Well,
and I think someone made the point shortly ago that even the corp stuff, you can't just jump on stuff. Like how many things we see from Google that within 6 months they pulled it or changed it or ripped it or its value changed. I've had that, like even when AMP started coming around last year, I had corporate clients asking me, well, should we be worried about this? And I invariably a lot of times have to say we have to just sit and watch and see what happens with it.
Well, it's kind of like with schema. For example, I figured out that a schema didn't exist, and a major manufacturer of something that is a very big company has an opportunity to basically create schema for the world that doesn't exist on something. And for them, it's a PR play, it's a branding play, it's their part in the universe play about creating schema for their industry and the world. So the big hang-up now is I've already written 3 POVs, we've had 27 meetings, but at this point it now comes down to legal. What are the implications if the client creates schema for the world? Are they responsible if something goes wrong? And so that's really what hasn't really ever occurred, because I think we're creating a standard, and I don't think legal understands how to deal with schema. You know what I mean? If you're a big, huge Fortune 50 company and you create schema for your industry that's huge, are you responsible for anything or liable for any issues that come from the use of that schema or anything that you got wrong in it?
Yeah, and to a large extent, it's not just the size of the company. The size of the company magnifies it, because when a company gets to a certain size, it starts to get departmentalized. And when it gets departmentalized, it means I want to get a change through. First, it goes to IT to see if they can do it, if it's feasible. It goes to marketing to decide whether there is a good reason for them to want to do it, or some other department to champion it. It then goes through financing to see if you've got it in the budget to allocate it. It then goes to legal to see if there's any implications that the company needs to be aware of. And in between all of these different departments meeting, and occasionally meeting together, but mostly meeting on their own to discuss it, it takes months. But I would say that to an extent, any company is also influenced by age and success. The company that's got a big budget, look, I've got changes that I predict are going to add 5 million to your bottom line in the next 8 months. Well, to a lot of companies, that's a big deal. To some companies, 5 million in 6 months is actually chump change, and therefore they are going to look at that in a whole different context. That even a growth of 1% is massive for them, but it's only 1%. They are still going to consider the other 99% really carefully.
Exactly. I mean, it's one of those things of the whole process you said, where it goes from IT to marketing to legal to back, and now that it's gotten all approved, does IT have time to do it, and when can they get to it? So totally agree with what you're saying, Emil.